I'm Eliza Carver, 34, and 2 weeks ago, my partner Nolan died. It was a Tuesday, one of those damp, foggy mornings where the Nova Scotia coast feels like it's waiting for bad news. A bacterial infection hit him like a freight train. The doctors said, gone so fast we didn't even get a goodbye. One day he was in our kitchen fiddling with footage of fishes for his latest documentary, humming off key. The next he was just gone. My head's still spinning. My son Theo, who's 9, keeps asking when Daddy's coming back from his film trip. How do you make a kid understand what never means? That first night after I got Theo to sleep with Nolan's old flannel shirt bunched in his hands, I called my parents. I was a wreck voice cracking like driftwood. Nolan was dead, and I needed them, Judith and Leonard, the ones who raised me, who'd always been my anchor through storms. They'd show up right. But Mum answered sounding like I'd caught her mid-conversation. Oh, Eliza, that's awful. We're at Mira's. She's got a big client pitch for her design business. Can we call you tomorrow? It's a make-or-break night for her. A pitch. My sister Mira's latest swing at saving her sinking career trumped my whole world collapsing. I sat on the cold kitchen floor phone, dead in my hand, staring at the driftwood clock Nolan carved for our 10th anniversary. It ticked on like it didn't know my life had frozen. Theo woke up an hour later sobbing for Daddy, asking why he didn't call. I held him till the sky lightened, spinning stories about Nolan, filming in tiny coastal villages, how he could make anyone feel like they belonged. But stories don't patch the hole someone leaves. And my family, my parents, Mira, they weren't there to help us hold it together. If you've ever been ghosted by the people who were supposed to show up when your life fell apart, I'd love to hear where you're at. Drop your story in the comments, join others who get this kind of hurt. Nolan and I met 12 years ago at a Halifax film screening. I was a grad student buried in tidal pool research, and he was this quiet guy with a camera showing his documentary about Micmac fishes fighting for their waters. I told him his film was solid, but missed the ecosystem angle. He grinned, hazel eyes sparking, and said, "Guess I need a marine biologist on my crew." That was Nolan, always listening, always game to learn. We built a life in this windy coastal town where the sea's as much a friend as a threat. Nolan's documentaries took him away for stretches, but he'd come home with tales for Theo and seaweed, samples for me. He'd filmed Theo sketching gulls on the rocks, narrating like it was a wildlife show. Behold Theo Carver, pencil warrior stalking the mighty tern. Theo would lose it laughing till he fell over. That love, those moments, they were our glue. Nolan wasn't perfect. He'd space on bills, glued to his editing screen. He'd leave coffee mugs everywhere, joking they were fermenting for science. But he was my rock. Through my PhD, through Theo's scary premature birth, when we camped in the NICU, through nights on our porch, with the lighthouse cutting the fog. For Theo's 5th birthday, he carved a wooden gull, smooth as a pebble, and said, "Gulls ride the wind, kid. They don't fight it." That gull's on Theo's nightstand now catching the dawn. We missed the signs. A fever he shrugged off. Tiredness he blamed on late nights. A doctor mentioned a heart murmur years back, but Nolan was 36, fit, always on the move. "I'll chill next year," he'd wink. We thought we had time. The morning he died, he was up early brewing coffee that smelled like burnt sugar, razzing Theo about his messy sketchbook. "You're going to need a ship for all those birds, bud." He kissed me, promising clams for dinner. Fresh ones, Eliza, not that canned garbage. So normal. It guts me that those were his last words. At 11:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Carla Nolan's sound tech was frantic. Eliza Nolan collapsed on set. Paramedics are taking him to Dartmouth General. I don't remember grabbing my keys, just the drive reins smearing the windshield hands, shaking so bad I could barely steer. I begged Nolan to hang on, but at the hospital the doctor's eyes said it before her words. Septic shock. His body gave out too fast. Gone at 11:52 a.m. before I made it. Seeing him was like a bad dream. His face was still Nolan's, but too quiet, too pale. I touched his cheek, waiting for that smirk. Nothing. The nurse handed me his wedding band, still warm. I slid it on my thumb, terrified I'd lose him. The day blurred, calling Nolan's parents, getting our neighbor Maureen to grab Theo signing papers I couldn't read. The social worker asked if I had family nearby. I said yes, because I did. I just didn't know how little they'd care. Telling Theo broke me. He came home, raincoat dripping, sketchbook under his arm. "Where's Dad?" I knelt down. "Theo, something really sad happened. Daddy got so sick today, his body couldn't keep going. He died." Nolan's eyes searched for a lie, but he promised clams. I hugged him, tears soaking his hair. "I know, buddy. Sometimes sickness is too fast." He froze. Then shattered sobs tearing through him. We sat on the couch, him curled into me, the wooden gulls staring from the table. That night after Theo crashed, I tried my parents again. I needed them to say it'd be okay. Mum answered Mira's voice, pitching in the background. "I'm so sorry, Eliza." She said like she was checking a box. "We're still at Mira's thing. We'll come tomorrow." "Okay." Dad got on, his tone clipped. "Rough news, Eliza. Nolan's affairs in order, insurance will all that. You'll want to lock it down quick. Affairs. Not, how's Theo? Just paperwork like Nolan's life was a checklist." I hung up numb. Maureen brought chowder and stayed her quiet presence more family than my own blood. The next days were a haze. Nolan's memorial was set for Saturday. I picked photos, booked the whole plan to scatter his ashes at sea. My parents called once, asking what time to show and if they should bring dessert. They didn't ask about Theo or me. Mira didn't call. I told myself she'd be there. But Dad's question about Nolan's will stuck with me like a splinter. Why did it feel like they were already circling? I pushed it down, but the unease lingered sharp as the wind off the harbour. The morning of Nolan's memorial felt off, too sunny for the weight in my chest, like the Nova Scotia coast forgot how to mourn. I'd spent the week in a haze, picking photos of Nolan grinning on the pier, renting the community hall, planning to scatter his ashes where the tides clash. Theo insisted on wearing Nolan's faded denim jacket sleeves, swallowing his small arms. "It's like Daddy's here," he said, clutching the wooden gull. I braided his curls, a trick Nolan learned to keep them out of Theo's sketchbook. "You're so brave," I told him, my throat tight. He nodded, but his eyes were too old for 9. I kept hoping my family would show up. My parents, Judith and Leonard, had called once to confirm the time, asking if they should bring a pie. They didn't ask how Theo was holding up, or if I was drowning. Mira, my older sister, hadn't reached out since Nolan died. I figured she was swamped with her design business, always chasing clients to keep it afloat. She'd come to the memorial. I told myself, hug Theo, say something real. I needed that hope, even if it felt flimsy. The hall filled with Nolan's people, his film crew fishers. He'd profiled friends from Halifax. His parents, Diane and Robert, flew in from Vancouver, their hugs warm despite their red eyes. Diane sat with Theo, admiring his gull sketches, while Robert queued up a slideshow of Nolan's life. Carla, Nolan's sound tech, shared a story about him jerry-rigging a mic in a gale, her laugh, breaking into sobs. The room brimmed with love, the kind Nolan always pulled out of folks. But as I stood to speak, I scanned the crowd. No Mira, no Mom, no Dad. I got through, my speech voice shaking, talking about Nolan's gift for listening, his awful puns, how he'd spin Theo around to sea shanties in our kitchen. Theo watched, tracing the gull's wings, and I poured everything into making him feel his dad's love. But my family's empty chairs burned like a brand. I kept thinking they'd slip in, blaming the coastal roads. They didn't. At the reception in our backyard, I overheard Carla muttering to a friend. Mira bailed for a client pitch in Toronto, said it was non-negotiable. Her parents went with her. My stomach sank. A pitch. Nolan was dead, Theo was lost, and Mira chose a business deal, her parents right there with her. Theo tugged my hand. Voice small. "Is Aunt Mira coming?" I crouched, faking a smile. "She's stuck at work, bud. But look at all the people here for Daddy." His face fell, and I hated the lie. That night after Theo slept, I called my parents. I needed them to make this hurt, less to be the family I'd dreamed of. Mom answered, her tone clipped like I was an interruption. "Eliza, we're sorry about the memorial." Mira's pitch was critical. "Her business is hanging by a thread. We had to be there. You had Nolan's parents, so you were covered, right? Covered. Like grief was a shift someone else could work." Dad got on his voice, all business. "Tough day, Eliza. You've got Nolan's paperwork sorted, will insurance. Don't let that slide. Paperwork again, not a word about Theo's tears. Or my sleepless nights." I hung up, chest aching. I flashed back to evenings with Nolan, his arm around me on the porch, joking about my tidal pools being nature's soap operas. He'd seen me, loved me, when my family barely glanced my way. Now he was gone, and they couldn't even fake it. I curled up on the couch, Nolan's wedding band, heavy on my thumb, and broke down. Maureen, our neighbour, brought lobster bisque and sat with me, her quiet presence louder than my parents' absence. The next morning, a letter arrived, official letterhead, from a Halifax law firm. It was addressed to me, requesting clarification on Nolan's estate, signed by a lawyer I didn't know. My heart raced. Why would a lawyer care? Unless someone prompted them, Dad's questions about Nolan's will echoed sharp and cold. I shoved the letter in a drawer, not ready to face it, but the splinter of doubt grew. Theo was quieter at breakfast, sketching gulls with a focus that scared me. "Why didn't Aunt Mira come, Mom?" he asked, pencil still. I swallowed. "She had a work thing, sweetie. Sometimes people make bad calls." He looked up, Nolan's eyes piercing. "Daddy said family's supposed to be there no matter what." Was he wrong? That gutted me. Nolan had lived it, never missing. Theo's play's always there for my late-night rants. I hugged him. Daddy was right. Some people just forget. I started seeing the pattern I'd ignored. Growing up, Mira was the golden child. Her art shows got standing ovations. My science fairs a pat on the back. Mom and Dad bailed her out of every flop. But when Theo was in the NICU, they called me tough enough to handle it. Nolan noticed once, saying, "Your folks bet on Mira's dreams, but you're the one they lean on." I'd brushed it off to keep peace. Now, with that lawyer's letter in my drawer, peace felt like a trap. If you've ever felt your family turn their back when you needed them most, you're not alone. Share your story. We're in this together. 2 weeks after Nolan's memorial, I was still wading through grief, like a fog that wouldn't lift. The Nova Scotia tides rolled on my tidal pool data, stacked up, but nothing felt solid without Nolan. Theo was back at school, sketching gulls with a focus that broke my heart, like he was pouring his hurt into every line. At night, I'd catch him whispering to the wooden gull, like it could ferry words to his dad. I was trying to keep it together for him. But my family's betrayal, Mira's no-show, my parents' lame excuses cut deeper than I expected. That lawyer's letter from the day after the memorial sat in my drawer, unopened, its weight growing heavier. I wasn't ready to face what it might mean, but I couldn't ignore it forever. Then my parents showed up, unannounced, Mira in tow on a drizzly afternoon. I saw them through the window, Leonard adjusting his glasses, Judith clutching her purse, Mira scrolling her phone like this was a coffee run. My stomach knotted. They hadn't checked on Theo or me since Nolan died. This wasn't about comfort. I opened the door and Judith breathed in voice too chipper. "Eliza, we need to talk. Family business." Leonard nodded, his teacher. Stare fixed on me. Mira barely looked up, her designer boots tapping. Theo was at a friend's, thank God I didn't want him near this. We sat in the living room, the driftwood clock ticking like a pulse. Leonard leaned forward, hands clasped. "Eliza, We're worried about you. Grief's a heavy thing, and Nolan's estate insurance, his film residuals. It's a lot to handle. We know you're struggling. Struggling. I was surviving. Keeping Theo fed, getting to work. Before I could snap back, Mira cut in her tone all business. My firm's on the edge. One big contract could save it, but I need capital. 60% of Nolan's estate would do it. You and Theo don't need all that cash. My breath caught. 60%. Nolan's life insurance. His documentary earnings, the future he'd secured for Theo. They wanted to gut it for Mira's latest flop. The same Mira who skipped his memorial for a client pitch. Then Leonard dropped the real bomb. We've consulted a lawyer, Eliza. You're not in a state to manage this estate. We're prepared to challenge the will, if we have to, for your own good. My blood ran cold. The letter in my drawer, it wasn't random. They were trying to paint me as unstable, too grief-stricken to control Nolan's legacy. You're threatening to sue me, I said, voice low, shaking. Judith patted my hand, her smile patronizing. It's not a threat, dear. We're protecting you. And Mira's business is a family investment. Protecting me. This was a shakedown, dressed up as concern. I flashed back to a night last fall, Nolan tense over dinner. Your dad asked to borrow from Theo's college fund for Mira's firm, third time in a year. I shut it down. I'd nodded, avoiding conflict. Now I saw it clear they'd always planned to come for us. You skipped his memorial, I said, staring them down, for Mira's pitch. And now you're using my grief to steal from Theo. Mira rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic, Eliza, I apologized. My industry's brutal, you wouldn't get it. Leonard chimed in, calm as ever. We're not stealing. We're family. You've always been so capable. But right now, you're not yourself. Gaslighting me like my pain was a weakness they could exploit. I stood, hands trembling. Get out. Now. Judith tried. Eliza. Let's be reasonable. Out, I snapped louder. They left Mira muttering about my hysteria, Leonard saying we'd talk when I saw sense. I sank to the floor, rage and hurt choking me. They weren't just after Nolan's money, they were trying to break me to get it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I crept into Nolan's office, a cluttered nook of hard drives and storyboards. His journal sat on the desk, worn from years of scribbling. I hadn't touched it since he died too raw. But now I needed him. I opened it, and the last entry, dated a month before he got sick, hit like a wave. Eliza, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Heart's been dicey, didn't want to worry you. Will, insurance, Theo's trust, all locked for you too? Your folks are trouble. Leonard pushed for Mira's business. Again hinted they'd pressure you if I wasn't here. They might try legal crap. Don't let them touch Theo's future. You're tougher than they know. Love you forever. Tears soaked the page. Nolan had seen their game shielded us, even kept it quiet to spare me the fight. I gripped the journal, anger hardening into clarity. They wouldn't get a cent, not from Theo, not from Nolan's memory. The next morning, I called Sarah, Nolan's lawyer friend, who'd drafted our estate papers. Mira and my parents want 60% of Nolan's estate, I said, voice steady. They're threatening to contest the will, saying I'm unfit. Sarah didn't miss a beat. They've got no case. Nolan's will names you and Theo sole beneficiaries. Theo's trust is untouchable, till he's 25, except for school. I've seen these stunts lawyers fishing for a settlement. They're bluffing. I exhaled, relief sparking resolve. What if they push? Sarah's tone sharpened. Let them. I'll bury them in paperwork. And if you want to hit back, we can make their move public. Nolan's community would eat them alive. Theo came home quieter than usual, holding the gull. Mama, Grandma, and Grandpa trying to take Daddy's stuff, he asked, eyes sharp. I knelt down. They're trying, Bud, but I won't let them. Daddy made sure we're safe. He nodded, fierce. The goal means we don't give up, right? I hugged him tight. Damn right. This wasn't just about money. It was about Nolan's legacy, Theo's future, our right to grieve without vultures circling. My family thought they could bully me, play on my pain. They didn't know I was done bending. If you've ever had to face down family who used your weakest moment against you, the fire it lights, share your story, we're not alone. A week after my parents and Mira threatened to contest Nolan's will, I got a text from Leonard. Clipped informal family meeting, Sunday 7 p.m, Community Hall. We're attending Nolan's documentary screening. Be there with Theo. I almost laughed. A public event. They thought a crowd would pressure me into folding play The Grieving Widow, too unstable to fight. But Nolan's journal, Sarah's assurance, and Theo's fierce grip on that wooden gull had flipped something in me. This wasn't their stage, it was ours. I asked Theo if he wanted to go. It's going to be intense, bud. You can stay with Maureen. He shook his head, eyes like Nolan's steady and sure. I need to Mom. For Daddy. He'd spent days working on something in his room. A letter he wouldn't show me. It's for them, he said, clutching the gull. Okay, I told him we do this together. Sarah prepped me, her voice calm but fierce. Their lawyers bluffing, but they'll lean on optics, make you look fragile. Turn it back on them. Nolan's community loves him. Use that. I nodded, a plan forming. They wanted a show, I'd give them one. Sunday evening, the Nova Scotia wind howled outside the community hall. The air thick with salt and anticipation, the hall was packed. Nolan's crew, local fishers' friends, all gathered for a screening of his final documentary, A Love Letter to the Coast's Micmac Fishers. My parents and Mira sat near the front. Judith's smile tight, Leonard scanning the room like a strategist, Mira tapping her phone. Theo and I took seats in the back, his backpack, holding the gull and his letter. My heart pounded, but I felt Nolan's strength in the ring on my thumb. The film ended to applause Carla stepping up to introduce a Q&A. I'd asked her to give me the mic first. She nodded, passing it over. I stood, voice steady, despite the eyes on me. Nolan poured his heart into this community. He built a future for Theo and me, one some people want to take. I looked at my family, their faces stiffening. My parents and sister demanded 60% of Nolan's estate for Mira's business. When I said no, they hired a lawyer to contest his will, claiming I'm too broken by grief to manage it. The room went quiet. Murmurs rippling. Judith's smile faltered. Leonard's jaw tightened. Mira's phone dropped to her lap. I held their gaze. They skipped Nolan's memorial for Mira's client. Pitch didn't check on Theo, but now they're worried about me. Nolan saw this coming. He wrote it down, protected us. I'm not unstable. I'm a mother guarding her son's future. I nodded to Theo, who stood small but unshaken, and walked to the front holding the gull and his letter. I wrote this for Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Mira. Theo said, voice clear, cutting through the hall's hum. He read, You didn't come when Daddy died. You didn't hug me or Mom. You only came for his money, saying Mom's too sad to be in charge. Daddy made this gull to show me strength. You're not strong for us. You're supposed to love us, not fight us. He set the gull on the podium, its wings gleaming. Daddy said, Gulls ride the wind. You're fighting the wrong thing. The silence was heavy. A fisher in the back clapped slow, then others joined a wave of support. Judith covered her face. Leonard stared at the floor. Mira's eyes darted like she was trapped. Carla took the mic, voice sharp. Nolan's legacy stays with Eliza and Theo. Anyone trying to take it can answer to us. The crowd murmured agreement, their loyalty a shield. I took Theo's hand, voice firm. We're done here. Nolan's estate is ours. Don't come near us unless you can prove you're family, not vultures. We walked out, the hall's applause fading behind us, the sea air cold and clean. Mira called Eliza, You're twisting this. But no one listened. Locals shot them looks, their whispers, cutting sharper than any shout. In the car, I hugged Theo. You were amazing, bud. Daddy's so proud. He hugged back, the gull between us. I just told the truth, Mum. Like Daddy would. I nodded, tears falling. We didn't just protect Nolan's legacy. We reclaimed our strength out in the open, where they couldn't hide. If you've ever had to call out family for crossing a line, it's not about winning, it's about standing tall. Share your story. We're in this together. After the documentary screening, it was like the fog lifted just enough to see the shore. Theo and I were still raw. Nolan's absence hit hard in quiet moments, like when I reached for his coffee mug, or Theo sketched gulls alone, but we were finding our footing. The wooden gull stayed on Theo's nightstand, its wings catching the dawn, a reminder of Nolan's strength in us. I dove back into my tidal research, the ocean's steady pulse grounding me. We weren't whole, but we were stitching ourselves back together thread by thread. My parents and Mira vanished from our lives. At first, no calls, no texts. Sarah, our lawyer friend, said their legal stunt fizzled. Their lawyer backed off after the public backlash. No grounds to contest Nolan's ironclad will. Theo's trust was safe locked until he was 25, except for school. I'd braced for more tricks, but the community's reaction at the screening, those claps, those whispers, had shamed them into silence. Still, I kept my guard up Nolan's journal, a quiet warning in my desk. 4 months later, a letter arrived, handwritten by Judith, addressed to Theo. Inside was a small sketchbook with seabird patterns and a note. Theo, I failed you when you needed me. I'm sorry for chasing money over love. I'd like to earn your trust, if you'll let me. Grandma Judith. No demands, no spin. It felt real or close to it, but the sting of their betrayal lingered. I showed Theo, and he studied the sketchbook, fingers tracing the gulls. Is she really sorry, Mom? He asked, voice soft but sharp. I hugged him. Maybe, bud. But sorry's just a start. They gotta show it. He nodded, setting the sketchbook by his gull. Daddy said, trust is earned, not given. Nolan's words alive in him. We didn't need to chase family. We found it where it already was. Nolan's parents, Diane and Robert, called Theo weekly, mailing him art supplies and tales of Nolan's teenage antics. They visited for a month, their laughter filling our house. Diane taught Theo to make fish chowder, Nolan's recipe, the kitchen warm with it. Robert showed him how to whittle, starting a tiny gull to match his own. Carla, Nolan's sound tech, set up a film club. For kids, Theo's sketches featured in their logo. My lab colleague, Lena, invited us for coastal hikes, her twins racing Theo through the dunes. Maureen, our neighbour, tutored Theo's math when grief fogged my head. These people bound by love, not blood, carried us. On Nolan's birthday, 7 months after he died, we held a bonfire by the point where his ashes met the sea. Theo and I piled driftwood high, the flames sparking against the Nova Scotia twilight. Carla, Diane, Robert, and locals came sharing stories of Nolan's duct tape fixes and corny jokes. Theo read a drawing he'd made, a gull soaring over waves captioned, Daddies, with us flying free. My tears fell softer now, woven with pride. Judith, Leonard and Mira weren't there. Judith's letter was a step. But Theo deserved family who showed up without an agenda. Mira sent a text days later. Brief, I was wrong, Eliza. Trying to change. It was something, but not enough. I didn't respond, letting the tide carry that choice for now. By the bonfire, Theo grabbed my hand. Mum, are we strong? Like Daddy wanted? I squeezed back the gull in his pocket, pressing against me. Stronger, bud. We're us. He grinned, real and bright. Nolan's estate sat untouched, save for our needs and Theo's future. His true gift was our courage, the boundaries we drew, the love we chose. If you've ever had to rebuild family after betrayal, you know it's not about fixing what broke, but choosing who sails with you. When does an apology earn a second chance? When it comes after the storm? Share your story. We're all charting these waters. As we walked home, the lighthouse beam sliced the dark, and Nolan's words echoed. The sea doesn't promise smooth sailing, but it shows you how to steer. That's our tribute to him, steering true no matter the waves.